Good afternoon, friends. For the past, I don't know, 6, 8 months, I've been having this feeling like I needed to share some of the tips that I've learned from experiencing watching the war in Ukraine for the past 12 years. And I feel like it's important to share some of these lessons, maybe tips, so that you can handle the new reality in the US a little bit better. Okay. So whatever I'm going to say right now, it all comes from the place of caring about you. And um, I hope you will find some of these useful. So I was a student in 2013. In Ukraine, we had some protests because the president at the time um, kept saying to people that we will connect to the European Union when it comes to the economic cooperation, social values, legal values. And then he turns around and decides to sign an economic deal with Putin. So that was October of 2013. People started protesting that because that's not what most people in Ukraine wanted. As you know, the protests got deadly. People basically kicked the president out, and Russia used that time of uncertainty in the government to seize Crimea first and then seize Donbass and just the eastern Ukraine. And I remember I was watching all of this while being abroad. I was a student, and I was talking to my friend in Ukraine who knows psychology, right? Obviously, I was worried. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't understand what is the physical scope of that invasion. I didn't understand what was happening. I just remember that suddenly, there were like a lot of economic and social and just a lot of changes happening, and it wasn't clear where it was going. It wasn't clear what the extent of damage would be. And so obviously I was worried. Obviously I was reading, a lot of news and things just to kind of understand what's happening and understand if there is anything that I could do while being abroad. And she sends me this article that says that said that basically when people experience an event, right? Like if people were part of a protest where someone was shot, or they even experiencing, they see the battle somewhere, near their town or a city, they would experience that bad event. Their mind, their body would digest it, and they would move on with their life. Okay. But when people read about that, or especially watch a video of that news, it kind of sips and just kind of stays in our bodies. And so, unless we have some sort of a way to give our body to emotionally give itself a break, for the body to digest the emotions, give a break just so that we rest and our body then ready to experience new emotions, right? Basically, at some point, all of those emotional things, they congregate. Remember that emotions, when people say control emotions, we don't control emotions. We control our response, right? We control how we act when we're experiencing the emotion. But emotion happens no matter what. Someone says something, we already, had some sort of an internal reaction. The control is usually, how do we control our face? How do we control our body? Do we punch someone? Do we keep ourselves, you know, civil, things like that. But the emotion happens. And remember that emotion is a bodily reaction. And the more of those emotions we have that compile in the body, they have a physical impact on our health. Why am I saying this? She sent me that so that I would know that I didn't have to watch every single news, right? There is only so many articles that I had to read just to know or understand that the war is happening. There is only so much, I wouldn't be able to control where does the line go. Will Russia invade more or less? Like, there is no control. I don't control that. So, like, how much more news would I need to read, or how many more videos would I have to watch um, to just realize what that was happening, right? Like, in reality, just a few, right? I would need to read it, know it, and I could move on with my life. And just occasionally, maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, just update myself just so that I understand what is happening, but do it, at a certain pace so that I wouldn't exhaust my body by just the sheer, uh, uh, um, you know, b- well, gravity, I guess, of those events, right? Because the war is, I mean, it's the war. It's like the worst thing that could happen. Fast forward to the full-scale invasion that started in 2022. That was much worse. Obviously, that impacted a lot more country. And I had to remember the same lesson, right? So, like, first, I had to be on the news media a lot more just because my city was under siege. We were trying to find ways to help my father to get out. We were trying to find, ways to sustain him. I was trying to help my friends to get out of the city and find people for her to stay when she, got out there. And so there was a lot more involvement. And then again, I had to use the same strategy where I just, as an adult, I chose my actions that could be helpful. But watching the news constantly is not one of them, just because my strength, my strength, right? Like the physical strength, the body, the mind, it's strong if I take care of it. And unfortunately, fortunately, taking care of your body means that you limit the amount of exhaustive stuff that you watch. I'm talking about this because obviously the last year and some last years in the United States have been politically exhausting to everyone, I believe. And it's not just that it doesn't, I don't think even matters like which part of the aisle you're at. There, it's a different experience of it, but it is exhaustive. Another dimension that changed, for example, from 2014, when I first experienced that notion of limiting what I read or how more so how often I read and what. At least at that time, there were no shorts. There was no bunch of content that was constantly attacking my feed. I would go on Facebook and I would see only the posts from you guys, right? And it would just make my life a little, feel better. You just kind of watch some photos of kids, of people going on a trip, what people ate, right? And we could just complain about, or talk about that. Right now, specifically this just last year, I noticed that Facebook, when it puts the first feed in our feed, it barely shows people's friends' posts. Like you have to click a separate tab button just to watch updates from the people that you care. I think by now we already know that social media's main strategy is to grab our attention, and they use our emotional little triggers, right? They learn what keeps us staying there so that they keep us in the loop. And the thing is, whoever creates this media, whoever feeds on our attention, it can be anybody. That's another thing that I learned, again, from the war in Ukraine. People tried to, post news and everything and be accurate. And then there are just people who are like, if they can get money out of or media attention, even while being in Ukraine, they sometimes use that, right, as a tool, even if the content is not helpful to people's emotions in Ukraine. And so Ukrainians had to fight that back internally to be like, hey, we are at war. We cannot hurt each other by just posting some weird content. The other thing is in Ukraine, because Russia usually uses social media and used it from, the onset of this war in 2014, there's a lot of just media, like fake people saying things or whatever, right? Like fake accounts. They are always there just to kind of keep sipping in the propaganda of their own voice. So Ukrainians at least can say, hey, there is this external enemy, and whatever we see that doesn't align, that doesn't help us win, that's, Russian narrative. Basically, we can just say that. But what can you say like that in the United States? The struggle that they created, they made it partisan. That's one. Second is gender, very clearly to me, based on, the social media content that I see. Women, men, rich, poor, and by, the parties. Um, and they split and they do the divide, and they, keep sharing things here and there. But again, it exhausts you. And the reason why I'm talking about this for so long is because when it hurts, when we watch all of this emotional stuff and it impacts our physical health and it dissipates and it maybe even influences other diseases. Maybe it simply influences your energy levels, your mind concentration. Then, because of that, it impacts the quality of your life, the quality of your relationship, and God forbid, these emotions make you do something or say something to the people that you love, because these are the actual people that are around you, okay? Not any person that is on the media, not any politician, not any company, none of them. None of them are in their lives taking care of your sleep. None of them cook for you. None of them go get groceries for you, okay? None of them watch, once you got the groceries, what you put in your body. None of them drop your kids off to school or daycare or wherever, right? All of that physical labor and emotional labor, none of them work for you, obviously, right? And so at the end of the day, the work of living and enjoying your life and creating good quality of life is on you. And so I just wanted you to be aware of all of this media Twinkies. Pardon if you love Twinkies, but I hope you understand. Shorts that have appeared, in the past like year or two, which I see like, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, no matter where you go, suddenly TikTok's thing is all over the place. It is junk, okay? This is pieces of trash that we just put in our bodies and we can't stop, okay? But you have to stop. There is a lot at stake, starting with just your own experience of life. It is very clear that both social media right now simply wants to feed off of our attention, of us staying here, with our phones, instead of staying with people in real life. So the new motto for us that I would like to promote is escape from the internet into reality. I say we should go back analog, okay? So I'll still be around, but I wanted you guys to start thinking about giving yourself breaks, giving yourself emotional breaks from all of this, okay? And it's okay. In fact, it is responsible to do so. It is responsible and it is out of place of love for you to pay attention to the people around you, to the people that you love. That's probably the best loving act that you can do these days. Okay. Care about you guys. Have a good day. I hope maybe it helps somebody.